So we all know in some way, shape, or form, tech is the future. Tech and the future lies with those that can code, those that can develop software, or does it? You know, when I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking of a guy named Rob Carpenter who started an extremely successful app development company at the age of 27 without even knowing how to code. What's going on, everyone? My name is Matthew Osborne, and this is the third episode in a series called The Young and Elite, which was a podcast I started back in 2016 when I wanted to interview young and elite entrepreneurs under the age of 30 to figure out the things they were doing that set them apart from everyone else their age. Be sure to subscribe below to be notified when future episodes just like this are released. As I said in the beginning, Rob Carpenter started an app development company at the age of only 27. Today we're going to dive into his story on how he did that exactly, but I wanted to give you a quick update on what has happened since this interview with Rob took place. So in the interview, you're going to hear Rob say he plans to make an exit from his current company in the future to start something else. He doesn't quite know what that is yet, but he's going to start something else. Here we are now, 4 years later, and he did just that. Rob exited from his company, Accelerlist, and he's now the founder and CEO of an extremely successful AI company with the goal of becoming the best conversational AI platform in the world. So let's go back now to the beginning and see how a regular 27-year-old can start a successful app development business without even knowing how to code.
Young and Elite, Episode 3.
Welcome to the Young and Elite Podcast, where your host, Matt Osborne, interviews the world's most elite entrepreneurs under the age of 30. Learn how to become self-employed, gain financial freedom, and live a life on your terms while you're still young. If you want to join the ranks of the Young and Elite, keep listening because it all starts now.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Young and Elite Podcast, the show that interviews entrepreneurs under the age of 30 2 times a week. The show today is a flashback episode where we have an over 30 entrepreneur who is wildly successful under the age of 30. Our guest joining us today is not just an awesome guy because he's a fellow Coloradan, but because he's changing the way apps are created. Rob, how are you doing today?
I am doing great.
Awesome. Rob Carpenter founded Accelerlist at the age of 27. Rob acquired an overseas development company in September of 2015, which quadrupled his staff size overnight. His company is prototyping a new methodology called Rapid Development, which will allow them to build software in half the time. Rob just won the Millennial Week Award for the best companies for millennial employees and the Denver Trailblazer Award. In addition, Accelerlist just spun out a new company called Rackfest that connects celebrities and their fans. Rob is in the flashback episode because he just barely missed the under 30 cutoff. Rob is 31 years old and living in Denver, Colorado. Rob, tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm the CEO and founder of Accelerlist. We are a mobile application development company. So we work with entrepreneurs and small businesses to help them develop software faster than any other companies in our field. And as you mentioned, we utilize our rapid development to use all of the sun development, which means we have 2 different development teams in 2 different hemispheres that can work on building software simultaneously. So we shoot for completing 16 hours of software development in a 24-hour window.
Wow, that's pretty impressive right there. So this show, why I created this podcast in the first place is because I wanted to give young entrepreneurs a good idea of how to get started, because I think that's the biggest thing holding up young entrepreneurs is where do I even get started? How do I start a business like this and turn it into something successful like you have? So walk us through how you started your current business.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I got started because my undergraduate degree was in entrepreneurship. I'd always had an entrepreneurial bug that included mowing lawns in high school. I had an advertising business in college, and then I started a real estate company after college. While I was working a full-time job, I was making money on the side writing business plans for people, and it's a very time-consuming process. And so one of my customers at the time had an iPad. This was around 2010, 2011 when they first came out. And I was looking for an iPad application that would help my customer write the outline of a business plan. And then I could step in, edit it, and really add the weight that banks and investors would be looking for. Well, to my surprise, in early 2011, there wasn't a single application out there that helped entrepreneurs to write business plans. So I took it on myself to develop software. I had never built an application before. I actually had to have a friend explain the outsourcing process to me. So I got on, I think it was freelancer.com, but there's also Odesk and Guru, which are basically just a network of developers, designers, all sorts of artistic and creative people all over the world that can help you. So I wrote the outline for what I thought would be a great iPad application, what the requirements were, what the content would be, and I posted my project to Freelancer. I had developers all over the world bid on the project. Local companies bid as high as $20,000, and the person I ended up hiring bid $700. So a fun fact, considering where we are now, I started the entire company with $700. So I took the money I'd been making on the side writing business plans. I hired a developer in India, and I got the, it'll be done in 12 days. And it was 4.5 grueling months later before I actually had a application that was sellable. So I uploaded it to Apple iTunes in November of 2011, and within a few weeks, we reached number 32 of all paid business apps in North America. In a couple of random countries like Ghana and Qatar, we were the #1 selling business application. The app Business Plan Premier is still out there, and to date we've had between 25 and 30,000 downloads of the application. I got really lucky because I was able to generate enough revenue that I could quit my full-time job. It basically replaced my salary. But no matter what I did to try to increase revenue, I couldn't get over a couple $1,000 a month threshold. And around the same time, other people had heard that I had built an app for myself. And so they came to me and started asking me to build apps for them. And so we actually, in early 2012, pivoted from being a product-based company to a service-based company. And we started using the knowledge that we had gained through outsourced development to start building software for other people. 4.5 years later, I have a staff of 26 with offices in 2 different countries, and we've launched over 300 applications for our customers.
Wow, that's incredible. I think one of the best parts about that story is you didn't have like 20 years of app development experience before you started this company. You literally got on, what did you say, Freelancer or Odesk?
I can't remember which one it was.
One of those outsourcing websites? Yeah. Well, so you outsourced the initial project, and that initial project is what basically launched your company, something that you didn't even code yourself. You didn't have to know how to code it. You outsourced that first part of your company, and then you built it from there. That's incredible because that's something a lot of young people could do very easily is get on Freelancer, get on Odesk, figure out something they think should be developed. And even if they don't have that skill set, they can find someone like that. I've had the same experience of you, though, doing something on Freelancer and something should take 12 days, and it ends up taking 2 months to do. But in the end, it seems like it worked out pretty well for you. So how did you start making revenue with that app right away, the app that was developed, and then transfer into a little bit of what your current streams of revenue are in your business and how that transformation kind of took place?
So once the application was live in Apple, it was very straightforward. Apple collects the revenue from everybody that buys the product in the App Store all around the world. If it's overseas, they repatriate all the funds here. They take a month to collect all the revenue. So let's just say it's the month of September. Apple will collect all the revenue, and then they'll take the next month, the month of October, to process that revenue. And then you get your first check in the beginning of November. So there is a little bit of a patience that's involved in it. So it takes it about 2 months to get your first check, but then after that, the checks start coming every month. So that was a very straightforward line of revenue. When we transitioned into being a service-based company and building software for other people, then our line of revenue turned into charging people for our services. And roughly the way that our income works is that in order to develop software for people, we need to know exactly what it is that they need developed. And so we develop their requirements for them. So we'll charge a few $1,000s to develop the blueprints for their software, which allows us to then give them a very specific quote for developing their product. We ask for 25% upfront, and then we just bill equal monthly invoices after that.
Nice. So the first app that you created, did you have a free version of it and like a paid version like a lot of apps have now, or what was the charge for that for people that wanted to buy that and build a business plan with it?
We tried a lot of different price points over the years, but it's averaged between $5 and $10 per download. Nowadays, about 97% of the App Store are free apps with in-app purchases. So we're definitely in an anomaly where, the 3%. We did launch a free version that gave people about 30% of the content, and then through an in-app purchase, they could get the rest of the content to finish out the business plan. And we probably had 10 times as many downloads as we did with the paid version, which is understandable because it's free. But the conversion rate was still a lot lower. So we probably only converted, a small percent of those. So the per download fee is actually still where we generate more revenue.
Okay. Nice. That seems like a really, really good way to get started and kind of transition there. So do you know how to write applications yourself then? Have you learned over the years how to actually write an application, or have that something you've outsourced from the very beginning up until now, just hired your own developers?
No, I don't know how to do it. I just hire people that are smarter than me. So I think that that's one of the most helpful tips you'll probably hear from anybody. I can't claim that it came from me. I think Richard Branson is one that really pushes that if he just surrounds himself with people that are smarter than he is. So I think that there's a tremendous amount of opportunity out there for young entrepreneurs who have great ideas, even if they don't have the skill set. Maybe you want to build an IoT project or a wearable, or you want to launch some other type of company. If you can convince somebody that is an expert in that space to join with you, you can have them do the delivery and you just handle the business side. What I've found, at least in the software development world, is that most developers don't like asking customers for money. They hate negotiating contracts. They hate selling. They don't like any of the business stuff that is required to build a successful development company. And there is huge opportunities for people that have that business skill set to be able to go out and ask for money and then just hire the people to actually deliver on the project. Someday after App Adventures, the next company I would like to start is a satellite development company. I've never worked in aerospace before, but I think if I have a successful exit from App Adventures, that gives me the ability to walk in and talk to investors and hopefully convince them to invest in my company, plus use some of my own capital, and then I'll just hire the actual, rocket scientists to develop it for me. But I don't feel that I have to have a degree in rocket science in order to start a satellite development company.
Well, that's some ambitious goals right there. That is awesome. So 2 quick questions for them. So how did you first market that first app? What was your marketing? Did you just throw it in the App Store and let it go? And then secondly is, how did you start marketing to the service-based portion that you transferred the business to after that? Where did you find your customers initially?
For the mobile application, I literally did just launch it, and Apple drove the vast majority of the revenue for me. All the things that I tried to do to market it, to be totally honest, didn't really have an effect on it. And that's why I ultimately pivoted to a service-based company, is because I just couldn't find a good way to increase revenue. For the service-based company, the way that we got started, half of it was people that reached out to us, and I had a partner when I first founded the company asking us to develop software for them. But then once we started to see that we could make a business out of the service side, then we started to proactively reach out to other businesses. And so because we were a small startup, we just started cold calling all the big development companies in town and said, hey, we're a small company, we do outsourced development. Do you have any clients that are too small for you? And in fact, several of our competitors said yes. Several of the big companies in town will have $20,000 to $50,000 minimums. And if your budget's below that, they just won't work with you. But they don't want to just leave those people hanging. And so a lot of some of our best leads ended up coming from what would be, considered our competitors. So it was a bit of coopetition, I think, is a word that's thrown out there. So I would encourage anybody that's looking to get started, especially if you're building a small service-based company, reach out to any of the big firms that are in your industry and see if they have any clients that are too small for them or just aren't a good fit for one reason or another. And if the business environment is as welcoming and friendly as Denver is, I think you'll find a lot of companies that are willing to work with you.
That's excellent piece of advice. I've never thought of that myself. That's a perfect way of getting business when you're a new company. I think so many people start a new company and they immediately try and compete with the big guys right away, and they say, oh, we're just going to be the next big guy, therefore we have to compete with them. But taking that approach to it is, I've never heard that before. That's awesome. That's a great piece of advice right there. So what would your best piece of advice be for someone that wants to do what you do? They want to build a business like you have.
Well, I guess just to get started then, to dive in. So I meet with a lot of young entrepreneurs that are looking to get companies off of the ground. So there's a number of different ways to go about it. If you have the skill set, or you think that you could develop the skill set, there's fantastic websites out there like Code Academy and Team Treehouse that for nominal $20 a month will teach you how to program software. So you could teach yourself how to build your own applications. Alternatively, there's all kinds of startup events around the nation, meetups, different hackathons where you can go and you can actually try to look for and find a technical co-founder. Sell them on the idea of your product, why you think your business is going to be successful, and then, see what it would look like to get them to come on board. Alternatively, if you can do some basic market testing, so even if you don't build a full production application, maybe you just build a mock-up. InVision is a great program for loading in designs and linking all of the pages together to create a very rudimentary mock-up of what your application would look like. You can do that, and then you can go out and start pitching angel investors or venture capitalists and running the idea past them and seeing if you can get somebody that'll buy into you and into the idea and would be willing to invest in your company. There's a dozen different ways to get your business off the ground. The key is just diving in and starting. And I think most people get stuck in what I refer to as paralysis by analysis. They think that they can't do it, or it's too overwhelming, or they don't know where to start. And so they don't, and they just never pursue the project. And so really the key is getting out there, teach yourself how to code, meet people that know how to code, sell an investor on your idea, or work nights and weekends to make extra capital. Go on Freelancer and hire somebody in Eastern Europe or India that can help to develop the first prototype for your application so that you can get it live in the store, potentially prove out your business model, and make your future discussions with either investors or developers a lot easier.
When you started App Ventures, did you ever at one point get investors into the company, or did you just slowly build it up as you got more business, slowly hiring more people and building it from there?
I have investors in my company. So we raised our first round of angel capital at the end of 2013. And then I just did another follow-on round in March of this year. So growing purely on cash flow is very difficult, because if you want to increase your business development and your sales, it just takes money. And it is hard to do that just off of cash flow, because you have to make sure you're continuing to pay salaries, keep the lights on, keep the water running, all of those types of things. Different people will have different perspectives. If you want to run your business forever and it's your baby, then maybe raising money is not the best way to go. If you would really like to build it up and to someday sell it, then investors are a great way to help fuel that growth.
So when was the tipping point for you when you went from working, you said you worked real estate before, correct?
I worked real estate for a while. I was working in internet marketing when I started App Ventures.
So what was that tipping point for you that where you said, this is running well enough that I can take this on as a full-time job and quit my day job? Because that's a scary thing to do when you initially do that, is knowing, hey, I'm completely responsible for everything that's going to be coming in now. Was it a certain figure you were looking for? Was it just a gut feeling and you took that leap? What made you do that jump?
It was a gut feeling. So at the time, I had just started dating somebody, but I wasn't quite into a serious relationship yet. I have a kid now. I didn't have a kid. I wasn't married. So I was, in a lot of ways, very free. There wasn't really anybody dependent on me. So quitting my job, the worst case scenario is that I would have a hard time paying rent and I'd be eating a lot of top ramen. So my downside was relatively low compared to, I think, some other people once you have a mortgage and you have kids and you are married. So, being young is a perfect time to start a business. We had a couple of clients that had closed, so we knew the model worked. We were bringing in revenue. Two things that were the big items for us. Number one was that we had revenue that was coming in off of the business plan application. So that helped to know I would at least be able to cover rent, if not eat very well, but I could cover rent. And then the second thing was in May of 2012, the university that I was attending for my master's degree, CU Denver, they were hosting a business plan competition. And my business partner and I actually tied for first place in that competition. And so we earned revenue out of it. We got awards. We got interviewed live on the news. We got news stories out of it. We got a ton of publicity. And so I can't remember when it was exactly, but it was either a week before that event or a week after that event that I quit my job.
Wow. Well, it's a good tipping point, I guess. It's, you know, that you can take it forward and you can do it. So what is one habit the Young and Elite listeners should implement in their lives?
Well, there's a lot of really great habits out there. I think if you're not 100% sure of what your business idea is, one of the things I like to do, and my wife and I joke about, is I just like to think my thoughts. I like to sit there and I like to think about new businesses, new business models, how it would generate revenue, what problem it's solving. For me, I just find that to be a fun activity. I'll get an idea for a business and I'll sit down and I'll sketch out a financial statement, which sounds super nerdy, but it helps me to understand, what's the core underlying business model. And I think that the more times you do that and the more times you practice, it helps you to get better at spotting good ideas, which may give you the motivation to start your own company. And it goes back to the very classic yet cheesy kind of Nike line of just do it. And I feel that so many people get stuck in that trap of thinking through their idea that they never move forward. So, by the time I started Appit, I had already started 3 companies. None of them were anywhere near as successful as this. They all kind of failed to varying degrees. But I feel like I learned a tremendous amount from each one. And I almost look back on each of those skills as like another tool in my tool belt, where if I hadn't started, I never would have learned, X skill or Y skill. So each opportunity, even if there was failure, taught me something new that helped, Appit, which ended up being my 4th entrepreneurial initiative, I think be that much more successful and get us to the numbers that we're at today. So a habit that I would recommend, think through different business models. When you see one that you think might make sense, just go for it. Even if it ends up failing, you'll probably learn a ton, and it'll make you so much more comfortable starting your next business.
I'm glad to hear I'm not the only one that has a huge list of spreadsheets of past business ideas that I've charted out and figured out, nope, not going to work. Next one. Nope, not going to work. I do the same thing all the time. All right, so let's say you have a shoestring budget, okay? You're working full-time, but you want to become self-employed within the next year. What business would you start, and how would you start it?
That's a great question. I think service-based businesses are the best place to start. Product-based businesses, which is either you have a software product or you're launching a hardware product or a clothing line, something like that. Product-based businesses are really, really difficult because they require a lot of capital upfront. Service-based businesses, you basically make money by your time, by the hard work and energy that you put into it. My wife is a wonderful example. So her master's degree is in social work. So she's a therapist. And she was working a full-time job, but then she started a private practice nights and weekends. So she'd work 8 hours, and then she'd go see clients at her private practice in the evening, and then she'd go in on a Saturday and try to see 4 or 5 clients. And she did that for almost 2 years before she felt that she had the revenue and the reputation to be able to quit her job and transition over. And now she has 3 independent contractors that work for her. So she's doing just fantastic growing her business. And so I think if you don't have a lot of capital, starting a service-based company is perfect. And in a lot of situations, there obviously will already be people that are doing it. Let's take a landscaping company. There's obviously going to be a lot of landscaping companies out there, but the quality of the work is such a big determinant of who people choose to work with. And so I think that you can very, very rapidly compete against the big, slow-moving companies by just offering a better quality of service. And it sounds so simple and maybe even cheesy, and I'm sure a lot of business professors would push back on that as a core competency. But I truly believe that a lot of service-based companies, especially the bigger ones, lack good quality of service. And so I think if you're dedicated and you're willing to work hard, offering that is a great way to go. And if we keep playing on the landscaping business as an example, work your full-time job, but then try to book as many side jobs as you can in the nights and weekends to build that reputation, to build your portfolio, and most importantly, to build up cash. And I would say, it probably takes 6 to 9 months to really determine whether a business is going to succeed. And then you're also going to need, if it doesn't succeed, time to find a new job. So while you're working all of these side jobs, just start saving up money so that you maybe have a 6-month runway where you can continue to cover your basic expenses. So again, to go back to your original question, start a service-based business. It doesn't require almost any startup capital. It's just your time and hard work. Do it nights and weekends, save up every dollar until you've got enough to cover yourself for 6 months, and then do it. Quit your job, start doing that business, and then just work as hard as you can and don't give up. A lot of people have told me that they, feel that my success has just come from the fact that I just haven't given up and I've just kept pushing forward every single day. And a lot of us want instant gratification. I know I do, but it's taken me almost 5 years to get here. And now that I'm here, it's incredible. I love having employees. I love having offices in other countries. It's a wonderful experience. But I wouldn't have gotten here if I had given up along the way. So you just have to keep pushing.
So the theme I'm hearing is find an idea, take action on that idea, then keep taking action over and over and over again until you make that idea work and work for you. That's perfect advice. So it's time for the rapid fire round. I'm going to ask you 6 questions in rapid succession, and you tell me the first thing that comes to your mind. Are you ready?
I think so.
All right. What is one goal you're trying to reach right now?
I want to open up a second overseas development office.
What is your favorite app or software that you would recommend?
It's lame, but I really, really like my email because that's where business comes from. So it's like opening up a treasure chest every time I open up my email.
What email do you use?
Gmail.
Gmail. Perfect. Everyone has access to that. What is your morning routine?
So my wife and I have a 14-month-old daughter, so it usually involves a baby waking us up crying at about 5:30 in the morning. So it's some variation of organized chaos, feeding the baby, getting dressed, getting caffeine into my bloodstream, and then usually trying to get into the office by around 8.
What is one book you would recommend to the Young and Elite listeners?
I really like The E-Myth. It's one of a couple of pretty classic startup books, but it's a great one to kind of help you separate what's the difference between, an entrepreneur, an idea person, and somebody that's more of like the technician or the doer.
All right, this one's more of just a fun question, but you're given $100,000. You can't spend it on your current business, and you can't start a new business with it. What would you buy?
Tesla.
Tesla. A great answer there. And for the last question of the rapid fire round, is there any plug for your business you'd like to share with the Young and Elite listeners?
I think the biggest thing is that if anybody ever has any questions about mobile application development, either getting into the industry or starting your own app product or app business, I really enjoy working with entrepreneurs, and I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody might have. Feel free to shoot me an email. It's rob@appitVentures.com. And I'll be more than happy to answer those questions for you.
All right, Rob. Well, thank you very much for dropping some awesome value and insight today. I know I appreciate it, and I know the listeners do as well. And to close out this awesome interview, I have 2 last questions for you, Rob. Who are you, and how are you feeling?
I am Rob Carpenter, and I am feeling young and elite.
Thank you guys for watching episode 3 of the Young and Elite podcast. More episodes will be dropping every Tuesday at 6 p.m. EST. And if that sounds interesting to you, subscribe below to be notified when those episodes are released. I will see you guys then.